Hello everyone. In this episode, I bring you the topic war reparations and the making of the modern world order. I wish to begin it now. Throughout modern history, wars have often ended not only with military defeat but also with financial consequences. Victorious nations have sometimes demanded compensation from defeated states in order to repair damage caused by conflict. These payments, known as war reparations, have played an important role in shaping international relations. From Europe after the First World War to the Middle East in the early 21st century, the question of who pays for the destruction of war has influenced diplomacy, economics, and geopolitics. Understanding how reparations have been imposed and how they have changed over time helps explain how the modern international system evolved. The Versailles system after World War One. After the end of World War One in 1918, the victorious Allied powers negotiated a series of peace agreements with the defeated states. The most famous of these agreements was the Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1990. Signed in 1919, the treaty placed responsibility for the war largely on Germany and required the country to pay reparations to the Allied powers. The total figure announced by the Reparation Commission was 132 billion gold marks, a number that appeared extremely large. However, historians later pointed out that the structure of the reparation system was more complicated. The payments were divided into different categories of bonds. Only a portion of total amount was expected to be paid immediately, while the rest represented long-term claims that were unlikely to be fully collected. Even so, the reparations placed heavy pressure on the German economy during the early 1920s. Economic instability, political anger, and social unrest followed. Many Germans believed the treaty was humiliating and unjust, and this perception played a role in the rise of national politics during the interwar period. Debate among economists. For many decades, the Versailles reparations were widely blamed for Germany's economic crisis and the later rise of extremist politics. However, some economists and historians later argued that the situation was more complex. They noted that Germany remained one of the largest industrial economies in Europe during the 1920s and that the actual payments were later reduced through international agreements such as the Davos Plan of 1924 and Young Plan of 1929. In practice, Germany paid only a fraction of the original figure before the global economic crisis of the 1930s disrupted the entire reparation system. The debate continues among historians. Some scholars argue that economic burden was manageable while others emphasize the powerful political impact the reparations had within Germany. Collapse of European empires. World War One did not only produce reparations, it also transformed the political map of Europe. Four major empires collapsed during the war. the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire. With the disappearance of these imperial systems, with the disappearance of these imperial systems, large regions of Europe had to be reorganized into new states. The peace settlements created or restored several countries. Poland reappeared on the map after more than a century of partition. Czechoslovakia was formed as a new state in Central Europe. In the Balkans, a new country called Yugoslavia united several South Slavic populations. The Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania also emerged as independent countries. Although the principle of national self determination guided many of these decisions, the new borders often left ethnic minorities inside neighboring states. This mismatch between political boundaries and ethnic populations later created tensions in several regions of Europe. World War II and the shift in policy. The devastation of the World War II forced governments to reconsider how wars should be settled. After the war, defeated Germany and Japan were required to provide compensation, but the approach was different from the punitive model used after the World War I. Germany paid large sums in compensation to victims of Nazi persecution and later reached a major agreement with Israel in 1952. Over several decades, Germany paid tens of billions of dollars in restitution and reparations to individuals and governments affected by the war. Japan also paid compensation to several countries in Asia, including Philippines, Indonesia, and Myanmar. These payments often took the form of development assistance, infrastructure projects, and economic cooperation. However, the international system increasingly emphasized reconstruction rather than punishment. Programs such as Marshall Plan helped rebuild European economies, including those of former enemy states. The idea was that economic stability would reduce the risk of future conflict. The end of reparations era. After the World War II, the practice of imposing massive reparations gradually declined. There were several reasons for this change. First, policymakers believed that excessive punishment after World War I had contributed to political instability. Second, the emergence of nuclear weapons made major wars between powerful states far more dangerous. Third, global economic integration meant that crippling a large economy could harm entire international system. As a result, modern conflicts are usually resolved through ceasefires, negotiations, or international mediation rather than large financial penalties. A modern example of Iraq and Kuwait. One of the few modern cases where large reparations were imposed occurred after Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in 1990. Following the Gulf War, the United Nations created a compensation system that required Iraq to pay damages for losses caused during the occupation. Over several decades, Iraq paid more than $50 billion in compensation to governments, companies, and individuals affected by the conflict. These payments were financed through a portion of Iraq's oil revenues. This case showed that reparations can still occur, but they are relatively rare in modern geopolitics. The legacy of war reparations. The history of war reparations reveal how international politics has evolved over past centuries. In earlier periods, victorious states often imposed several financial penalties on defeated countries. After the catastrophic wars of the 20th century, however, policymakers increasingly prioritized reconstruction, stability, and international cooperation. Today, the international system generally focuses on conflict resolution and economic recovery rather than punitive settlements. Conclusion: War reparations, war reparations have played a complex role in shaping the modern world. From the controversial settlements of the Treaty of Versailles the construction to the reconstruction policies that followed World War II, the international community has gradually moved from harsh financial penalty punishment. The experience of the 20th century demonstrated that stability and cooperation often provide a more durable foundation for peace than economic penalties alone. Understanding this history helps explain why modern conflicts are usually resolved through diplomacy, international institutions, and reconstruction efforts rather than large reparations payment. So that was our topic on war reparations and the making of the modern world order. Thank you for tuning in with us. We'll get you more topics like this. Hope you enjoyed the facts of war reparations and have a great day.